Welcome to Counterpoint. I'm Tanya Allen. Today, March 16th, as we film this program, marks the one-year anniversary of the very first COVID lockdowns which shut down businesses. 1 year, and 1 year of our 2 weeks to flatten the curve, where businesses were asked to roll up their socks and temporarily close for the good of all Canadians. 1 year of all being in this together, where 1 in 6 businesses are contemplating shutting down permanently in Canada. 1 year of small businesses accruing over $135 billion in debt. 1 year of untold devastation to the hopes and dreams of small businesses owners. I've painted a very grim picture, haven't I? But I have to. I've had to, and I've heard from too many Canadians who guaranteed jobs who dismiss the plight of small businesses while queuing up at the local Walmart and Costco and wait for their guaranteed pay rise. Will it ever end? Is the government doing the right thing to protect Canadian businesses from the fallout of this lockdown? Or are the goalposts going to change and continue to change, making the future so unpredictable, small businesses might see no path forward? Well, joining me later in the program to offer his insight will be Dan Kelly, President of Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. But now I want to hear from some of these small businesses who have been impacted so much by these lockdowns. Right now, we're joined by Susie Pearson, owner of Hintonburg Kids, a children's boutique in Ottawa. Welcome, Susie. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm, eager to hear about how COVID has impacted your small business. So please share with us your story.
So like a lot of other small business owners, we've been pivoting for the past year. I did have a staff of 4 other part-time moms that worked here, and now I only have 1 part-time mom working here just because it's hard. Everyone's at home with their kids. So I've been doing a lot by myself. We've been delivering, not much of a choice with the lockdowns. We can't have our store open to the public. So I've been delivering for the past year, which is a lot of work on top of everything else.
That is a lot of work. So it sounds like you're sort of, you have a diminished staff, but you want to see through the lockdowns and hopefully open up at some point. So you've got to keep going, don't you?
Definitely, yeah.
So how has the COVID measures, how do you feel that they have personally impacted, say, your sales and your long-term projections for your business?
Honestly, it's hard to project anything in this situation just because it's hard to know what the next week will bring. There's a lot of talk of a 3rd wave and a possible 3rd lockdown. So I don't really know what that means for the business just because we've already gone through this twice before. And the 2nd lockdown was very different from the 1st lockdown. I think the reason why the 1st lockdown was a bit easier for us to weather was because we were able to pivot quickly. Whereas all the big box stores, they were ready and they were prepared, and being able to stay open during the last lockdown made it so much harder for smaller businesses to weather this one.
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, you have a children's boutique, you sell toys, you sell baby items, things that, perhaps people could find at bigger stores like Walmart that were allowed to stay open, but you had to shut your doors. So how do you, as a small business owner, who I assume this has probably been some part of your dream to have this boutique, how do you look at the government and say, well, how are these measures justified?
It feels very unfair just because small businesses have never been identified as a source of community spread. January and February are very, very hard on small business as it is. We never really have anybody more than like 2 or 3 people in the store at a time in January and February. So to be considered a risk and forced to shut down, it's very hard to swallow. When you go to the grocery store a few blocks away and there's 500 people up there, they're allowed 500 people in there at a time.
My goodness.
And what's interesting is the grocery store started to stock a lot more of non-grocery items, I think, as a result of being allowed to be open during a lockdown. As an example, Loblaws near here was selling snowshoes. I can't imagine they would sell snowshoes outside of a lockdown, but if people have nowhere else to shop, it makes sense to sell everything.
Right. And of course, small businesses are bearing the financial capital brunt when you can't, and seasons are going to change and you're left over with a lot of winter stock, aren't you?
It's so hard to order right now, I have to say. I have no idea how to buy things.
So how, in the 30 seconds we have left, how do you continue to have optimism that things will change, given that we're, as you said, maybe entering a 3rd wave?
Well, the vaccine gives me hope. And the fact that I've already done this twice now, I know what I'm doing. And also I've really, really tightened my belt. And I'm trying to go into the 3rd lockdown in a position that makes it easier to come out of it. My husband works, and quite frankly, if he didn't work, I wouldn't be able to do this, because one of the luxuries of being a small business owner is if there's no money left to pay myself, I don't pay myself.
My goodness. Well, I'm sorry to hear all of that, and I really do hope that your business does survive. Thank you so much, Susie, for joining me. Welcome back. We know many frontline services have been impacted, including salons and aesthetics. I'd like to welcome Julia Armenwine, owner of Polished Up Aesthetics in Hanover, Ontario. Julia, thank you so much for joining me today. A lot of persons don't realize how your sector has been heavily impacted in COVID. So could you please explain how many months have you had to lock down, and you're in Ontario, so they have the color-coded system. So is your sector still locked down in many parts of Ontario?
No, we're in the green right now.
Where you live.
So we're very fortunate that way. The first shutdown was the 4 or 5 months from March till June. We were able to go back. We went back before Toronto and those areas, that's for sure. And then we were just shut down again December till middle of February. So
that's a lot of months.
It's long enough. It's long enough.
So how have you been able to cope, and how has your business been able to continue to survive?
It's on the brink right now, to be honest with you. I've got maybe 20 to 30% of my clients back. I have a lot of clientele that are seniors, so they're nervous, understandably. Clients that have lost their jobs, so getting their nails done is not a priority right now. I've lost 3 renters, so I'm out quite a bit of money to keep my building running. It's impacted quite a bit. It's been really hard. Like, if we have another shutdown, I will probably have to sell my building.
Really? So you won't be able to see through it. And we hear this talk. I'm sorry to, break it to you in case you haven't seen the headlines, but we've heard discussions that there most likely will be a third lockdown, a third wave coming up within the next few weeks.
Yeah, now that they've announced that we're officially in our third wave, my stomach's been in knots, and I said to my husband, maybe I should just put it up for sale and call it what it is, because I can't go through that stress again. And how do I keep the building afloat when I don't have an income?
So I need you to really describe this for Canadians, because some people are not small business owners, and I don't think they understand the sweat equity you put into a business. What would that mean for you? And what does that mean for you mentally and emotionally if you have to shut down your business?
I love aesthetics. It's my passion. I absolutely love it. I don't know what else I would ever do. It took me years to build up the clientele that I have or had, and to just let it all go, and all that hard work and not even just money invested, but and not seeing my clients. My clients become my friends. It's a really hard pill for me to swallow. Like, I've had a lot of tears over it and a lot of back and forth. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I don't know what to do.
And what do your clients say? Are they concerned about the lockdown? I know you said some of the elderly were a little hesitant to come back, but those who have come back, what are they saying?
They don't want it to happen. A lot of my ones that have come back, like I said to you yesterday, it's essential for them. Like, they say my job is not essential, but my one elderly client got really bad ingrowns and I couldn't be there to dig them out, ended up in the hospital. That's an ER visit. They don't want to have to go through that again. And
you probably have
senior.
I was going to say, some of your clients are probably diabetics who require certain maintenance, some personal hygiene maintenance.
Yeah, it's not just getting your nails painted and everything. Some people, they have to do it for their health. And they're worried about it too. And a lot of them, my one client that I just had today with a bad ingrown, she said, well, if we get shut down again, I will be in your driveway.
Wow.
So, they don't want to see it happen either. The only other alternative I have is, if I do sell my building, I do home visits. But again, with COVID, people don't want you coming into their home either.
Now, with your type of business, again, you're in aesthetics, personal care. Do you feel that the COVID lockdowns have been unreasonably applied to your industry versus others?
Most definitely. Why can I go to Walmart with 300 people where I guarantee you there's no social distancing going on, but I can't have one person in my salon to keep my livelihood going? It makes no sense. It's like that for a lot of my fellow estheticians. like it's the same. And like, I feel really bad for the people in Toronto that have spas and stuff too, because they've gone even longer than me. And where do they start? We've worked really hard for this. How can you deem a job not essential when it is essential for our living, for our livelihoods?
That's very well said. Very well said. And now with a lot of people, obviously, on another note, a lot of people not going, they're not going out for social engagements, not going to work. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't feel the need to, even if they are doing it just for personal pleasure, not even wanting to get their nails done. So you sort of have been hit on both sides of this.
I have a number of clients that bought their own shellac kits, on Amazon. And I mean, I can't blame them for it. Right. So they can just do it at home. Okay. Right. And yeah.
Well, we'll have to see what the future holds for you, but hang in there and best wishes to you. Welcome back. We just heard from two experiences of personal businesses that have really struggled in the first and second and soon to be potentially third lockdown. Well, joining me now is Dan Kelly, President of Canadian Federation of Independent Business, who's going to share with us his insight on what we can expect and what's in store for small businesses in Canada. Dan, thank you so much for taking time out of your very, very busy schedule and for keeping up the fight for small businesses in this country. I'm happy to have you.
Well, happy to be with you.
Okay, so I think for sort of the most part, I mean, there's certain parts in Canada are still in the throes of a lockdown, but how have small businesses fared with the second lockdown before we deal with what's on the horizon?
Yeah, look, it's been brutal, particularly for Canada's largest city. Toronto and the Peel region have essentially been in lockdown more than anywhere else in North America.
Wow.
We have businesses now that have been in lockdown in the restaurant setting for indoor dining, as well as in gyms for almost 300 days over the past year. That's how many days they've been closed to in-store traffic. And gosh, how anyone could be expected to keep the lights on with that kind of a lockdown is beyond me.
Yeah, you said over 300 days in the past year. That is almost a year, shy of a couple months. Yes, no, that's a long time. And I used to live in Toronto, so I used to frequent many small businesses, and I can only imagine. Well, when I come back through, I see a lot of boarded up businesses, and it breaks my heart because I know there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into setting up shops, and a lot of entrepreneurial spirit.
We're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, though. I mean, there have been about 60,000 businesses across Canada that closed their doors in 2020, permanently closed. But we're projecting at CFIB that there could be a further 180,000 permanent business closures before the end of the pandemic. Many business owners don't have a clue whether they're going to be able to make it or not at this stage. They've got a handwritten sign in the window saying temporarily closed,
right? And
they're not even certain themselves whether they're going to be able to reopen their doors. Even at this late stage, across the entire country, only 62% of businesses are fully open, and less than a third of businesses are making normal levels of sales. So it's absolutely critical that we get these businesses open, and then at some point start to lower the COVID restrictions to allow customers and stop giving them the advice that they must stay at home. Those days need to come soon if we're going to have businesses survive.
And from the first wave and the first lockdown, I mean, I think there have been increasingly more overwhelming healthcare measures put in place and burdens, if you will, for lack of a better term, on store owners to mask, to socially distance, decrease capacity. And from what I've seen, most businesses have been bang on. They've been compliant. They have increased those measures. Have there been any outbreaks associated with small businesses?
There's almost no data to suggest that infections are happening in small businesses, either in retail shopping, indoor dining. A few cases, I think in one case with a gym, but very few overall. And yet the lockdown measures have been incredibly tight on them. Meanwhile, of course, Ontario maintained this bizarre policy of allowing the big box stores to remain open through the whole pandemic. None of it has made a terrible amount of sense. Essentially, what we've been told is the government imposed lockdowns on businesses not because the business activity was so inherently risky, but to send a message to the public to stay home. Well, that's pretty tough for a business to swallow. If your business and your economic future is essentially being cratered in order to send a message to somebody else, that's just not fair. And look, business owners in the first wave were incredibly understanding. They
Right.
knew that governments had to act quickly, didn't have all the answers. It's the second wave of lockdowns where we've been using this as really the only public health measure around. We've done almost nothing on rapid testing across Canada, despite millions of tests sitting in labs. Contact tracing seemed to have disappeared after the first wave.
That's true.
It has been basically a one-trick pony: lockdown, 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 and damn the consequences for the small businesses. The economic supports too are just not there. Yes, there are some subsidy programs available, but they're not delivering for the size and scope of the pandemic and all the number of days that businesses have essentially been closed.
And I want to get into some of those facts and figures in a moment. But when you mentioned that the government, at least in Ontario, wanted to use small businesses to send a message to people to stay at home, I mean, that is utterly absurd. How can anyone rationalize that?
Well, look, they're saying that this was the only thing that they could do. That because people were not listening, they needed to see that things were shut down, that there was nowhere for them to go. Meanwhile, of course, we've known that a lot of the infections are happening based on activities that are happening in people's homes.
Right. Welcome back. Once again, I'm joined by Dan Kelly, President of Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. Dan, before the break, we were talking about, obviously, the devastation of businesses in Canada. You said 60,000 closed in 2020. That number could hit as high as 180,000 by the time we're all done this, I think. Do we even see an end in sight? I don't even know. Just to paint a picture for Canadians, and this stat is a bit old, it's from 2012, but small businesses employ nearly 70% of private sector Canadians. That's 7.7 million of us. That's a lot of people. And if our businesses are being shuttered, if these small businesses are being shuttered, sure, it's the owner is losing their investment and everything like that. But what about the employees? Where do they go?
You're 100% right. Look, I mean, we saw a little bit of a jobs blip on Friday, some nice increase in the number of jobs that Canadians have. That's certainly good news, but it's not happening in small and medium-sized firms right now. Only 40% of businesses, 44% of small businesses have brought back all of their staff at this stage. So they're way, way below their hiring potential. And if we do see that 180,000 additional businesses close their doors forever, that will take out 2.4 million Canadian jobs.
Wow.
You know, the thing
number
that worries me is we're not also seeing a whole bunch of entrepreneurs raising their hand and saying, hey, you know that vacant restaurant that just opened up, I'm going to start a business there, because people are gun shy. What was the message during the pandemic? If you had a salaried job, certainly if you work for government, you were fine. In fact, you were probably economically better off. But if you owned your own business, if you took risks in this world, you had the legs cut out from you, from under you. And gosh, that's not a good message to send to young people as we need them to start to come in to take over the businesses as so many entrepreneurs are going to be forced out.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. If you have a guaranteed job, I guess technically no job is guaranteed, but say a government job where not only was your income stable, but in some cases they even got a raise while people were losing their shirts in small businesses. It almost sets it up like it's going to be a class war. If you have a stable job with the government, well, here you are. But if you've gone out and tried to make something and create with your own energy and your own passion, well, you're going to be punished. And as you said earlier in our previous segment, because the government wants to use you as a vehicle to send a message to everybody stay at home. Well, they may very well get that wish when all these businesses shut down and they'll have no choice but to stay at home. It makes no sense.
It's deeply troubling. Look, I think we're in for some long-term hits. Yes, there is some pent-up demand right now. We have some businesses, fortunately, that may, as the pandemic restrictions lift, start to come back. We're hoping for that. There are others that are saying that, because Canadians are sitting on a lot of cash right now because they've not been spending, that once the businesses are reopened, that money will find its way into the economy. All those are good signs, but I'm really worried about all the businesses that just don't have the horsepower to make it across the COVID finish line, whenever that would be. Exactly.
If they could stay their course, then great. But yes, you're right. They may not have that firepower. We have about a minute and a half before we have to wrap up. Comment a little further. What What are your thoughts on the government response, maybe through the last wave, in terms of supporting small businesses with programs and financial supports?
Look, there are some good programs out there. The federal government created a CEBA loan program that provided at first a $40,000 loan, which was then bumped up to $60,000. There's a rent support program available for business, a wage subsidy for business. Many provinces have announced provincial grant programs as well. But even if these programs deliver at maximum capacity, and what many of them don't, there are lots of businesses slipping through the cracks of every single one of them, including brand new firms that are getting nothing. But even at full capacity, that isn't going to be enough for many of these businesses to make it. Mm-hmm. Our data shows that the average small business has inherited $170,000 in COVID-related debt. And it's that debt that's going to pull them into bankruptcy, even as the economy reopens. It's one of the reasons why we need to make sure that businesses who have been shut down in order to protect society are at least compensated enough that they can live to fight another day. I worry deeply that that's not going to be the case for many, many entrepreneurs across the country.
Okay, Dan Kelly, I'm sorry, time's up, and we've just always love having you on. You always have so many interesting things to say, and we're going to be keeping our fingers crossed for those small businesses in Canada. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
It seems even as we prepare for this third wave, which apparently we're already in, and the potential third lockdown, small businesses are still exceptionally vulnerable. Will they survive this next lockdown? Time will tell. For Counterpoint, I'm Tanya Granick-Allen.